Are we ready with AI to rely on to deliver customer experience? Today, we are pulling back the curtain on how so many customer experience strategies fail at the finish line. According to PwC, nearly 92% of tech investments are failing to hit their marks. So, how do you bridge the gap between marketing promise and a legacy system reality? Joining us today is one of the most respected voices in global B2B transformation. She held roles like Global Head of Customer Experience at Hitachi, Board Chair of the CXPA, and leader who has navigated complex back offices of giants like Ericsson, SAP, and Citrix. She does not just talk about customer delight, she talks about the hardwired infrastructure, data hygiene, and executive alignment required to actually deliver it. Let's welcome the woman who turns silent churn into strategic growth, Tabitha Dunn. Hi, Tabitha. Thank you. Thank you for being on the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, today we'll cover from your executive level experience. What I have seen recently, like between strategy and execution, there is huge gap. Whatever is planned in the boardroom is first not conveyed to the execution team correctly, and the field marketing and sales have different perception about what they can sell, and there is a huge gap. So what is your take on here, like how that strategy and the information flow in between within the C suite and to the execution team, mid management, and the ultimate frontline, how this gap can be filled?
A lot of that really depends on what are the core metrics that are being set up in the dashboard for the C suite and the board to look at on a regular basis. I also think this is why there is a growth of interest by companies to shift from looking at just specific data or metrics like sales numbers or cost to acquire, or if you're in SaaS, like customer retention and so forth, to something more like OKRs. So, objectives and key results have a tremendous opportunity for people to be able to then say, if our objective is to grow, let's say your objective is to double in size in the next 3 years from a footprint and a sales perspective, then the key results then approach allows you to then say, here are multiple metrics we need to look at that are going to actually show how well are we going to achieve that goal, and are we going to have a healthy business while we achieve that goal. And I think it's that healthy business part that really makes the most sense for businesses if they're looking at long-term growth, not just short-term growth.
There are various researches and studies that say like all those like technical investments are failed to deliver because they are not aligned with strategy, right?
Hmm.
And what you say is like the alignment can be filled with communication and engagement and involvement. Why still leaders are failing to do that? I mean, you working from top execs and top brands, what common pattern do you see is the reason behind failure? Is it like a knowledge gap within the C suite, like what's changing in the industry versus what talent they already have?
It's a combination of three things. It is an execution gap, it's a focus gap, and it's an attention gap is the best way to put it. So if I think about it, if you take that first piece, the knowledge gap you were talking about is really it really encompasses those things. So if I look at it, I've been in through a lot of digital transformations. Right now, everyone is talking about AI, and I've spent a lot of time with AI. I've led AI projects. I'm an advisor for a CEO that is had multiple successful exits on agentic AI and a new solution. And a lot of what is causing the mistakes and the challenges of achieving the right outcomes when you make these sizable investments in anything digital is the fact that we forget the people that it's actually there to achieve outcomes for, whether that is your customers, your employees, your partners, or the entirety of that ecosystem. If we don't have clear expectations that those have to be delivered on and what those metrics look like, then it's likely the project will fail. So, having been the executive in many steering committee meetings for digital transformation, if I sit there and all I hear is, this is what we're going to deliver next sprint, here's what has to get prioritized, but I'm not hearing, who's this going to serve, what problem are we solving, do we know it's the right problem to solve, and are we clear with the metrics, what is going to be that outcome. For example, if there's a process that takes too long for customers, let's say it takes customers an average of 30 minutes to solve that problem, and it takes us 47 steps internally to achieve it, and the technology is gonna make that radically simpler for everyone, well, then you should have clear metrics. If it's go what is it gonna go down to? How many steps? Is it going to 12? Then every sprint I should hear, "Hey, we're actually gonna knock off these 7 steps out of the process with this new achievement," or it's gonna knock off 7 minutes of the customer's time and doing this process because it's gonna automate these parts of it. When I hear those metrics, then I know you're actually gonna achieve outcomes. But if all I hear is we're gonna deliver this in this sprint, and then the next, here's what we're gonna do next sprint, then we're already focused on the wrong things. But technology is fun and it's easier than people.
I was just looking at an article today. It's like 2 seconds delay on the checkout processing can actually lead to multi-million dollars of loss in the abundant cart metric, right? For large organizations.
Yep,
So
it
it's
absolutely can.
really the infrastructure. Yeah, you're right. So like if we keep focusing on sprints and velocity to deliver without even seeing the value on the customer influence, again, this is not the right planning, and then the strategy has to be readdressed. You being in the middle of CX industry, so and CX metric is typically seen as soft metric, not as like a direct dashboard level scoring system. I mean, NPS, CSATs are there, but still, CX is seen as like a passive behind profit and loss. It's the only keyword talked after AI right now. Okay. I mean, it's so popular. Everyone is talking about CX. It's becoming more popular every year. Every time there is an AI conversation, yeah, CX comes along. But again, there are less actions about CX.
I think it's because as powerful as NPS or CSAT or customer effort score can be, there's sentiment analysis and it's a scoring, but it's passive. And what you need are active metrics and clearer targets for the teams, particularly like if you take something like NPS. So I had the opportunity to actually work with Fred Reicheld and a team from Bain when they were developing NPS in the early days after the first book came out. And I've worked with it in many industries. If likelihood to recommend is a behavior that customers will not only do, but potential customers seek out recommendations or referrals as part of their buying process, then NPS can be hugely useful. But if all you measure is NPS, you have two very difficult problems. The first is that it's a complex number in the sense that one team could do great and the number goes up, but another team
Yeah.
might have problems and the number goes down. If you don't
Yes.
have a really good understanding of that
Then
complex
average goes
landscape,
off.
exactly, you
Yeah.
don't know where the real root cause of the problem is. But the other side of the equation is if you're not actually measuring and understanding the human behavior, like what do they seek in those referrals? Why is that important in the buying process? Is it about trust? Like, what are you measuring in those things? And how are you ensuring you're driving those outcomes? Then you have the right sort of suite of metrics that are both active and passive. NPS is telling you what happened. It's not telling you what's going to happen. So how do you start measuring what's going to happen? How do you get into predictive analytics? And in the digital world, you have a ton of behavioral analysis. When people go through the shopping process, you know what they're doing. So how do you really get your arms around understanding it? Those are very solid, predictive, and real metrics around customer behavior, not just the sentiment analysis that tells you what people say, but also what do people do? And that's where I think CX can get a little off track. It's just what they say and not the do side of the equation.
What is your take on silent churn?
Mm. Well, I don't think that any customer actually churns silently. I think it's more that we don't
There are
pay
signals.
attention to it,
Yeah.
right?
Of course, there are
Right?
signals.
Exactly. So typically in my career, I've mostly been focused on B2B. And what you find is if you look at the entirety of the customer journey and you look at the loss side of the equation throughout that, you actually get a lot of really good insights. Everything from you shouldn't just look at like why we win deals up front in the journey. You look about why do we lose and who do we lose to? And
Right.
as you move through the journey, when do you lose customers? How well were they using the products? Did you know when they bought it? Like there might be 10 very big value drivers of that solution that they purchased, but only 4 of them were the ones that matter most to this customer. Did you know that? And at what point did they not realize the value of those 4 items? Or at what point did we lose their trust? Like, what were the key things that happened along that journey that really broke their trust that made them say, "I'm gonna switch to someone else. I need some other type of solution." And those things, it's easy to say things where the customer might say, "You're just too expensive." Often what they're saying is, "I didn't get the value for what I was paying for that solution." And that's where churn becomes an incredible set of data for any customer experience team to really not only improve the customer experience, but predict what their experience is gonna be and how we can better keep them.
You have worked with Hitachi. You've been chair for CXPA board, worked with Ericsson, SAP, and Citrix. Have you ever been into a situation like behind churn, the teams are blaming the tech stack behind it? Like companies cannot deliver the right experience because of the tech failure. Have you lived that experience?
It depends on how well you can trust having a good communication with your customers. And the reason I say that is years ago, I worked for Concur. Concur is an amazing brand, um, travel expense solutions that serve a large portion of the businesses in the world. And it has an incredible suite of capabilities. But when I worked there during the early stages, Concur was doing a massive redesign of the underlying architecture of the tech stack. It was much needed. It was incredibly important. But part of it is it had a stability problem. It was very public and the customers knew. And the best way to really see that and be able to make sure that customers know that you care is that you show them that you're listening to them, that you know what matters most to them, and keeping them posted on that you're what you're working on and how you're making progress. So we had an incredible partnership with our CTO and our chief product officer, where they and our head of global services spend a lot of very transparent time in webinars that customers could join, customer meetings. When we had customer events, like we had sessions, like, come talk to us. Like, we will tell you, here's how the investment's going, here's progress, and here's the sneak peek of like what's the next wave of what we're tackling and fixing. When you're having challenges in your tech stack, or you're making significant changes, when you have that deep trusted relationship that Concur have with their customers and you're transparent and you work with them throughout that, then they're willing to go along for the ride. But if you try to pretend they don't see the same problems that you see and just say, "Well, we're gonna work on it," then they lose faith in you. And it's often one of the biggest challenges CX teams have when they actually, like, some part of the business fixes a problem, and we never actually tell the customers, "You were the reason we fixed it. We heard you, and this is why we did it." You lose out on building the trust. You did it, and you did it for that reason, but if you didn't tell them, they don't know that. It's the same thing when you're having challenges. You really need to be honest with them. They're experiencing the problem too. So make sure that they feel like you're a partner in that process.
How it is possible to work with every single customer when organizations are large? Is it like sales reps responsibility? You also mentioned CX teams. Is customer experience a responsibility of CX teams? I mean, I think it's everyone's, but at to some extent at a scale. But um, like, how can customers be addressed at individual level in this case?
You actually have to think about them as individuals, but also as segments, like of certain like needs and like behaviors. And you're correct that every part of the business owns a piece of the customer experience. It's a CX team's role to look at that entirety of that experience holistically and then identify what matters most to customers, both what works well and why, because you don't want to break that, right? That's a big part of why they stay with you, but also what doesn't work well and why. And when it doesn't work well, what's the impact on the customers in order to understand, like, oh, this is what we might need to fix. For example, you might select a problem and you go and you talk to individual customers to say, when this happens, tell me what happens on your side when this fails or this mistake is made. So you understand then that it might be a problem that doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it has a huge impact. Oh, then we should definitely fix that. We might pick that over a problem that happens much more often, but has a very minor impact. It's how you start to do the balance. And so when I talk about research, I often say you start with qualitative, which starts with individuals. You move to quantitative, which gets you scale, like how many customers are experiencing this. And then you move back to qualitative. What's the story we're trying to tell about this was the pain point? This is the impact it's having. This is the benefit we get, our employees get, our customers get if we fix it. Then you build out the business case to go solve the problem. So qual, then quant, then qual. That's how you reach individual customers.
There is another study outside right now. Deloitte says like 95% of companies measure customer satisfaction correctly. 20% of those successfully translate that data into quantifiable financial benefits. So what does it tell is like there is a lot of data with organizations that is received from customers in terms of surveys, feedback, touch points, engagements, and satisfaction scores, and all those things. But there are few companies only who can actually utilize that to the value to drive business outcome. I agree with this to an extent because I have seen silos between marketing, sales, and product teams. Okay, whatever is developed is not based on what customer problems really are at widespread. Sales reps cannot sell it because customers don't need that, and what customers need, that sales reps don't feed that back into the system, the CDPs, to make company aware of those demands or the pain points. So there is a huge gap and silos. So data is there, but it is invisible or not connected between teams. Do you agree with this?
It can be. It really depends on how the company both sets up the strategy for the year and how they're going to measure success for that strategy. And, you'd mentioned, for example, many companies measure some version of CSAT or NPS. It's part of their core KPIs. But what happens is they often, I think the art of goal setting becomes a really interesting discussion for a lot of executives. If your goal is we're going to increase from X number to Y number this year, that whatever that is, whether that's a sales number, it's a percent increase in CSAT, um, but how does each of the teams under that, how do they play a part in that? And I think that's where
Mm.
things like if you have CSAT, many teams go, well, what do I do? Uh, What do I get to control that
Yeah.
can make any impact on that? It's how you take that top level goal and translate it into tangible actions. So you might say, we have multiple customer portals, and that makes it difficult for customers to realize which portal do I log in to go to achieve what task. And the reason we have multiple portals is because we have silos in the business. We've got like there's a product portal, there's one that the sales team uses, there's one that marketing uses.
Yeah.
None of them talk to each other. They all are used for different purposes. They have different logins, different UI. And the customers are like, well, why do I have so many portals? Like, why do I need to go to so many places to do different things? Right. It's very frustrating for the customer. It's very frustrating for IT because IT has to build and maintain all of those portals. And the more you have, right,
Yeah.
the less money each of those teams are getting to try and get improvements made.
Yeah.
If you want a better goal, we have a better customer experience. We go to one place and their profile tailors. Here's the type of activities you should have access to when you go into the portal. You can actually improve that by building one portal. It's easier for IT to maintain, more money that you can actually utilize for feature development across those multiple teams. But there has to be benefits for each of those teams to want to let go of owning their own portal and be able to join into one portal. And that's where you actually build out clear metrics saying each of these groups need this kind of deliverables. This is the sort of service that they need from IT every year. They're going to get these types of improvements. Here's the benefits to the customer. And then as the outcome, you'll have an improved CSAT because customers will have a higher score as a result of that. They'll be happier. But the teams will also be happier because it'll be more efficient for them, and they're more likely to get the new features and capabilities they need in their area of the portal this year than they would when it was a separate portal before. But yeah, change management is really hard. You have to be able to help people see the problem, be aware that it causes problems at a broader scale, and give them benefits so they have a reason to want to switch. And that's where it really becomes difficult for those top line metrics to get translated if you don't have really good leaders who are comfortable with working across those teams to build common sets of outcomes and benefits together.
You said right about the change management, and how you described it within one sentence is very powerful. I want to make sure I highlight that, because how the change is implemented, being make the teams aware of the change and the value it will drive, and then make them part of the change, not just like pushed on them to get it done. Yeah, this is very important for leaders also to understand that change is not one way.
It's a huge part of what I do is change management.
What do you think about AI to drive customer experience on the front line? I mean, your personal, honest opinion about it. Are we ready with AI to rely on to deliver customer
Mm.
experience?
I think that depends on how well it's deployed and how well it's designed. And if we understand customer needs and customer choice, which are two different things. Um, happen to love technology. I mean, I've worked in a lot of technology industries and I've led technology teams in multiple businesses. Um, but it really comes down to, and this is where you get a lot of those lovely principles from design thinking. It's important to fall in love with the right problem to solve, and then that then leads you to the right path and solution. And sometimes that right path is AI, and AI is going to be more effective at solving the problem. But many years ago, for a company, we were working on improving the um, automated ways to solve problems. And we were trying to do a better job at avoiding people calling support, right? Calling, emailing, texting, chatting, whichever their chosen path was. And the first hurdle that everyone had when they were setting a goal is they would just say, okay, well, we want to improve it by 50%. And I'm like, can you even improve it by 50%? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, how many people actually doesn't matter how many other paths you give, they're gonna pick like, I'm a person who prefers never to call customer support if I don't have to. I will do a lot of other work that takes me a longer path if need be than to make the phone call. Some people just prefer to pick up the phone, even if it might be faster, to use agentic AI to solve their problem. So if you force customers to have only one path and you don't understand the choice, you're solving the need, like the problem that needs to be solved, but not understanding what choices people are going to make and understanding like how do you ensure like is there a way to get them to want that to be their choice? Or are you going to have two paths available? And what are the costs of forcing them to only take one path? And that's one of those discussions that it's a lot easier to say, well, agentic AI could get rid of a lot of our agents. We could have a lower cost to serve. People could solve their problems faster. Does that matter if they don't want to use it?
Hmm.
That's the like, you have to answer that question, like, will they make this choice? How many will make this choice? And if they won't make it, then what happens? What are the consequences? And do we plan for that as well? And it's that sort of thoughtful, like, how do you really design? There's a great cartoon that design thinking uses all the time. Everybody has probably seen it. It's the sidewalk where you have the sidewalk that's this way and the side, and they're like this, and there's grass in this section and this section, right? But when you look at it after people are walking there, nobody walks to the T and takes a left or a right.
Yes.
Everybody cuts through the grass this way
Yeah,
or
yeah.
cuts
I
through the
saw that
grass that way,
illustration. Yeah, I saw that
right?
picture.
That's the power of choice, right? They're choosing, I prefer to go this way. And so they built something poorly because they thought it was a good design. And that's not it. The best design for technology
Mm.
is to build it through the path of guided customer choice. And that's where I think agentic AI has the best chance of being successful is when it's designed with that in mind.
We can pilot it better. We can do more experiments concurrently with different audiences on different options, and can scale quickly. There is a different conversation I've had on pilot purgatory about companies are stuck in just keep doing experiments and never able to scale. There are different problems on that front, but yeah, you're right. Like it's not like what you think the good design is for your customers. It has to be aligned with customers' choices, preferences, and habits. And that is why there is like voice of customer that you should always listen to.
Yeah. Studying human behavior. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and whatever you're referring to about agentic AI can help on that. Yeah, I mean, even CXP also published a white paper on AI CX maturity map, and which is wonderful white paper. Actually, I'll share that in description also. I mean, I read through, and there is a lot of learning how CX can be combined with AI to scale faster. There are a lot of gaps that can be filled with AI. It's a sensitive matter because it's frontline. Even like there is another study I'll refer right now by Gartner. Like by 2030, 75% of B2B buyers will prefer sales experience that prioritize human interactions over AI. Even like next 4 or 5 years, customers of B2B markets still are expecting human in the loop for closing the deals rather than just relying on AI, given given if the context is very clear.
And a lot of that will have to do with the price point. The more money that you're expected to spend for a solution, the more you're going to want to build a relationship with a human you can trust. Because there's an implied idea that, well, can I hold an AI to its word?
What is that one key metric if you suggest, like the success of CX should be measured with NPS, CSAT? There are different controversial conversations that okay, NPS alone is not good enough, CSAT alone is not good enough. What is that one metric, even like at a top level business success, you think like is the fair enough metric to justify growth and customer experience together?
You know, what's interesting is I like to measure customer trust. I think trust matters a great deal in B2B. It's a different story perhaps in B2C, but in B2B, trust matters a great deal. Particularly the more expensive the solution, the more impactful the outcome is for the customer, the more trust matters.
How to measure trust?
You measure trust in a couple ways. I mean, one, you ask how much do you trust this company to actually deliver on our promises. You can ask about trust that we will be your partner. It depends on how you structure your brand promise, is how you define what trust might mean. And this is where marrying your brand promise to customer research, like when they talk about trust, what do they mean when it comes to the solutions that you have? Um, but trust then translates to, how do you then help the business develop more in the trust improvement space? And that means that you have to be able to say tangibly how many areas of the business picked up a significant customer issue this year and said, I hear you. We know this is an issue. We're going to improve this year. And by the way, yep, we did it, which builds trust, right? We said we do it. We heard you. You are our partner in this. That builds trust. So you measure teams and parts of the organization on how many times are they picking up an issue, making it clear the customer knows that they were heard, worked with multiple teams. So it's a cross-functional, kind of cross-organizational solution that builds a better customer experience and increases customer trust at the same time.
So engage with them and closing the loop. Yeah, yeah, that's a big one actually. Customers also like feel bad and more likely to churn if they are feel left behind. They feel like ignored, right? So that engagement is necessary. But when we get into B2B segment, I mean, there is huge, even both sides from the service side and from the customer side, there are like multiple people involved, and there are personal emotions and preferences and convenience involved as well for each individual. It's and each person have different intention to participate into the decision process, budgeting process, and RFP and everything from both sides.
Yeah, and if you were the executive on the inside and, I've purchased a number of solutions, I've had teams that build technology solutions. Both are investments, right? Build versus buy, but in both cases, I as the leader who makes the final decision and signs off on that cost, I'm making a promise to my peers and to the business that that investment will be worth it. that we will deliver the ROI for that. If the project doesn't do that, if the solution we just bought doesn't deliver on what we committed to, the personal relationships, the trust my peers have in me is going to go down. So like, well, you said it would do this.
As you know, I'm working on a book, so I keep researching on things, and that came up and very powerful. Like 79% of CMOs are not confident about ROI on their digital investments. So, and what you just said, giving assurance to leaders for delivering value for that investment. Okay, and once that investment is made, then justify the ROI and build that. This is how trust is built. Okay, it is not just one way investment. Tech stacks are screwed up. Large organizations have worse management on the technology investments than the smaller organizations, which is very difficult. That's right. Um, but we're talking about trust right now in the digital world. So this is one part of the trust, but with customers, what are those other areas that companies can or leaders can prioritize to build trust with their customers? Like um, vision alignment, or like there is a lot that depends on inside news, inside information, like what businesses are looking for. And as we just touched earlier, also a little bit, like sales reps don't give enough information back to the system so that other teams can take advantage and plan accordingly. Marketing campaigns can be personalized based on that information. So there is a disconnect between teams. But trust comes with personalized communication. Like when you resonate what customers want, what they feel, what makes them happy, right? What they make them heard, right? So, how technology can help bridge that gap?
Years ago, I had the opportunity to work with a chief revenue officer who um, understood the power of information and knowledge and insights. All of those being different things. Like if you have quality information, quality data, you can have much better knowledge to run the business, and you can use that to develop insights about where your risks are, where your opportunities are, where, are the right problems to solve. And he understood that the salesperson and the customer success team, if your business has a customer success team, are the people who know the customers the best, who hear from point where they're a prospect all the way through to their customer experience to hear what's working well, what's not working well, what did they most value from the solutions. And he understood that they hear it, but all of that knowledge is vested in those people. If that knowledge doesn't get out of those people and into CRM, for example, where other people can access it, where other people can utilize that, where you actually have the ability to say, gee, 80% of our customers really want this particular product. This is the number one reason they want it. We had to better make sure we instrument this inside the product, make sure that people are using it. You could see they're getting the usage from it that we would expect, and it's the right patterns. So we know we're realizing the value. That's where, you'd have to have the data to know that. So he understood that it started actually with him. He didn't just tell his teams, you have to use CRM.
That's right.
What he did was he would not accept PowerPoint. He
Ah,
wouldn't accept Excel. When
I
he
like that.
wanted data, the first place he would go is CRM. If it was
Yes.
not there,
It
you
doesn't
would get a
exist.
message. Why is this missing? Or he would if he would drill down and be like, I need this information. If he'd say, well, I want to understand this. If someone wanted to send him a PowerPoint, he'd be like, I want it in the system. Let me see it in the dashboard. I want to see it there. Those are designed for the views and the questions and the answers that I need. And by that, he set a powerful leadership example that people knew if your data was missing, it would come to the surface. Or if your data was inaccurate, it would come to the surface. Since he wouldn't accept the data anywhere else but in the system became the actual system of record, which means that everybody else knew the data in there had a high degree of likelihood to be there and to be accurate. And if you needed new data and it was new information, he was like, yeah, we should start capturing that. His ability to then say, this is the change, we're going to make this, we're going to put it, and everyone is going to start capturing this information because he set that behavior and that expectation, which meant that a lot more people could utilize that information. It's a rare circumstance that where a leader will do that, where they're very clear and saying,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is where my information is going to come from, because he knew the power of that data. And if it's in the tool, we could use the data, not just in sales, not just in customer success, but all across the business. The CRM was used a lot.
This is the example every company should follow. This is very powerful, and I like that. And yeah, this is broken. Leaders has to enforce this practice and make it mandate to everyone to follow.
And we did not sit in like quarterly business reviews with the sales team. He did not, there were no PowerPoints. He'd bring up the dashboards from in the tool.
Yeah, that's a
Think
true
about how
real
much
time.
less work that was for us.
Yeah.
Nobody had to prepare PowerPoints.
Yeah.
You just had to ensure the data was there. Then we were there to actually discuss what did it mean, what were the issues, and really brainstorm on what we might solve or how we might solve those issues.
Yeah, CRM and the BI tool, these are two things only are sufficient if they are populated correctly. And that is what we should do.
It is a great place to start. If you don't use the technology you paid for, you're not going to get benefit out of it.
Great. Any final message, Tabitha, for leaders to follow, like in this world right now? I mean, we're going through AI transformation and CX is being discussed a lot. What is your suggestion today?
Not to forget people. It's not just about customer centricity, it's about human centricity. It's have empathy, not just for your customers and for your partners and that entire ecosystem. It's to have empathy for your employees, your peers, the leaders above you. Most of the people in the business are not there to make it more difficult to work together. They're actually there, they have a job to do. And if you really understand what their challenges are, what their obstacles are, and how we can work better together to have better outcomes, we can have better outcomes for everybody involved. And then we'll know we're working on the right problems and we'll deliver real value. And that is hard to do, but it's worth it every day.
This is true. I mean, people are living in fear right now. Their jobs will be taken by AI someday. But that's not true. AI success of AI is still like majority by human success, right? AI cannot be successful alone. I mean, this is human, and jobs can be adjusted, and it has to be adjusted, right? AI will only replace people who don't know how to use AI. Companies and organizations can give opportunity and training to their staff to become more efficient and more capable with this technology, not just look for replacements.
Absolutely. It's technology serves a purpose for people.
Absolutely. Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you, Tabitha. Great insights. Wonderful discussion.
Oh, thank you. I am certainly very passionate about the topic, so I appreciate the opportunity.
And that's a wrap on this episode. We hope you are walking away with at least one battle-tested strategy you can apply to your own digital journey today. This show is built for leaders like you who are tired of the fluff and ready for real solutions. If you found value in this discussion today, please subscribe to the channel and leave us a review. It helps us bring more world-class leaders to the table. Also, feel free to share this episode with a colleague who is navigating these same digital trenches. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.